You're watching Hi-Fi Lo-Fi, and I've got a lovely cassette deck. As you can see, it's a double cassette deck. I bought it used some time ago, but the shop where I bought it from had it wrapped in plastic, this cellophane plastic. It's come with the manual, which is stuck under the plastic at the moment. So obviously I haven't used it since I bought it, and I've been itching to get it unwrapped, and finally today I'm making a video about it. So you can see it's still got the plastic on it. I'm not sure how visible that is from the video. You can see that there. So I'm going to get the plastic off and do some close-ups and tell you all about it. I've got 3 cassette decks in the Onkyo INTEC275 series. The one featured today is the one on the bottom, which is the double cassette deck, the K-W511M. Worth noting that the letter W is often used to denote something double in Japanese audio equipment, and obviously in this case it's a double cassette deck. The one in the middle is the K510M, and the one on the top is the K511THM. I'm assuming that the THM stands for 3-head mechanism, but I could be wrong because of course the 2-head mechanism also is THM in terms of its initials, but it's got simply the M at the end. Not really sure what the M means on these two and other Intec audio gear, because the letter M is often at the end of things, especially when it comes to revised versions of the same decks. So the double deck on the bottom has got everything exposed. It's got all the switches and everything, all the controls exposed. The other 2 decks have this drop down flap, and they've got this little handle thing that you very difficult actually if you've got big fingers, big hands, but anyway, and you can drop down the flap. This flap feature is on other Intec 275 gear as well, and there we are. The flap drops down on that one, and there's a flap on this one as well that drops down. So they've kept some stuff hidden away, and this one has it all exposed, so there's a major difference there. Not really sure why that is, but as you can see there is a display, and when I switch it on in a moment you'll see the digital display. They all have the exact same dimensions, and as you can see they are all the same colour, which means they are all from the first generation of Onkyo's INTEC275 series. Now, I couldn't find anything online to suggest that Onkyo did a cassette deck in the second generation of the INTEC275 series. A major difference between those generations is that the first generation is this slightly gold colour, and the second generation is a much more silver colour. Indeed, there are other differences, such as the first generation here has these beveled edges, slightly curved as well, very, very slightly, and the second generation is much more angular, much sharper lines. So if you have any information about the second generation having a cassette deck, please let me know. Please post something in the comments below. There is one other cassette deck in the first generation that I'm aware of, but I don't have, and I believe that is the K522M, but I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. Let me know again in the comments if you've got any other information about any other Onkyo INTEC275 cassette decks not mentioned here. Some things worth noting is that they all have digital displays, and it's all yellow dot matrix. I'll be showing you the double cassette deck shortly when it's switched on. Also worth noting is that, of course, the position, because this is a double cassette deck, I suppose the way they've had to design it is a more conventional format with the cassettes loaded, you know, there we are, cassettes loaded in there like that, and that means you can see the cassettes in the loading bays, whereas these two, the cassette tray comes out a bit like a CD tray, so it means you cannot see the cassettes, the tape going around inside the machines. That is something that is important to some people. It is a kind of part of the attraction sometimes of cassette decks, is to actually see something moving, see the cassette going around, see the tape going around. There are other advantages to that as well, but in pure aesthetic terms, you can't see the cassette tape going around in these two, but of course you can in these, because they have this conventional setup. And quite interesting how close they are together, and it's because they have to fit it into the INTEC275 series format. The 275 refers to the width across the front. It's 275 millimeters. The left side is referred to as Deck A and is for playback only. The right side is referred to as Deck B and is for record and playback. As you can see, the logo in the top right corner shows that it has Dolby B, Dolby C and HX Pro. You can see feet mark there from where other gear's been stacked on top of it. The view from the left side, the view from the right side, and the typical cork ringed feet on the underside. I think the condition's all right given its age. So here we are looking at the back. Standard analog RCA terminals there. You can see RI remote control for daisy chaining other components in the same system via one remote control, which is the one that comes with the amp. A mains electric cable hardwired in, and a power outlet for mains electric, which is really useful for daisy chaining other components in the system, although actually you can plug anything in there up to 100 watts. I've got a hard copy of the manual. It's in Japanese, of course, because I'm in Japan, and this is the Japanese domestic model of this cassette deck. And I've noticed that there is a lot of erroneous information online, and there's a lot of contrasting information online. I hope that the best information is from the manufacturer's website, if you can find information there. Otherwise, you'd expect the manual to have the best information, the most accurate information. Bear that in mind, because I've discovered that a lot of popular websites for audio gear doesn't always have the correct information. Just saying, please bear that in mind. So I'm going to take some photos and highlight some specifications for this deck from my actual manual. These are not screenshots. As I said, a real photo from my manual here, not a screenshot from the internet. Highlighting a few figures, it's got a wow and flutter rating of 0.07%. Obviously that's when the deck was new. The frequency responses are given as 20 Hz to 15,000 Hz for normal type 1 tape, 20 Hz to 16,000 Hz for type 2 high position tape, and 20 Hz to 17,000 Hz for type 4 metal tape. A total harmonic distortion of 3% at 58 decibels for metal tape with Dolby noise reduction out, as in not being used. You can see some figures there which have asterisks by them, and that is because the Japanese governmental department that tests these devices, tests these machines, gives their figures that they got from laboratory testing, which, as you can see, differ to what the manufacturer has stated. Moving down to some key information, it specifies 2 DC servo motors and 2 DC motors, and it specifies 2 permalloy heads, one for playback and record and one for playback only, and 1 ferrite erase head. Also, you can see the dimensions there for width, height and depth as specified WHD, and the weight of 4.7 kilograms. All the buttons are electronic soft touch except for the eject buttons, which are mechanical. Looking at the buttons and controls, both decks have separate transport controls, and they both reflect the fact that both decks are auto reverse. So you won't see fast forward or rewind or anything like that, and you've got play in both directions there. And the record level, interestingly, is actually for deck B, which is the record deck, because deck A is a playback only deck, yet the record level buttons are on the side of deck A. Perhaps a little confusing for some people, I don't know. And the Dolby noise reduction affects both decks, and the reverse mode is also for both decks. The power button is a little bit small and I feel could be in a more prominent position and perhaps a little larger, but the display AB button toggles between deck A and deck B for that display. And there we have the controls for the record deck, that's deck B. The counter reset will affect both decks depending on which one is displayed on the screen. And you can see the fact that you can rig up a CD player in this series and it will automatically start recording when it gets a signal from the CD player. That's what that dubbing mode does. And obviously, being a twin deck, you can do tape-to-tape recording. So the auto space, well, I suppose I've never tried that. Let me know what the auto space does if you've ever used it. I can guess, but I've never tried it. Let's get it switched on. You can see the typical yellow dot matrix display from the INTEC series of this era. It's currently displayed on deck A, which is the playback deck, and I mentioned the reverse mode. If we press the reverse mode, it toggles between two positions. It's currently on non-auto reverse, that is to say that when it reaches the end of the side of the cassette tape, it will stop and you need to manually make it play the next side. Now you can either do that by the traditional method of taking the tape out and turning it around and putting it back in, or you can press the button here or here to make it play in the opposite direction, and then what will happen is the tape head will change direction. If I press reverse mode, you can see now it's gone into the other position, which is continuous playback, and what happens is when it gets to the end of the side, it will automatically turn the tape head around and play the other side of the cassette tape. The problem is it will just keep doing that continuously, so it doesn't have that third setting which some decks have, which I wish it did have, and that is when it gets to the end of one side, it plays back the other side and then it stops, so it doesn't continuously keep going round and around. Anyway, it's not a deal breaker, I'm still happy with it. And if we press the display A, you got display B there to show you deck B, which, as I said, is a playback and record deck. I'm pleased to say it plays back fine on both decks without issue and all the controls work. However, I haven't tested record yet, perhaps in a future video. There's always some worry concerning auto reverse decks, that is decks where the head turns around and plays in the other direction due to head alignment issues, azimuth issues, etc. This deck is fine, and so are all my other Onkyo decks that have auto reverse. No issues whatsoever, I'm pleased to report. In terms of sound quality, it's absolutely fine. It plays back well for what it is, a 28-year-old deck. It isn't something that you can compare to, say, a high-end audiophile deck from the same era. However, it is a nice, warm, analog sound, and that's what we like. So I actually started making this video last week, but unfortunately I was struck down with a 4-day cluster headache. If you know what they are, you'll understand. If you don't, it's just something really nasty. And that's why this video is taking me a bit longer to get together, and here we are 4 days after I started the video, finally getting it done. That was just something totally off topic, but it's just letting you know what's going on with me. This has been Hi-Fi Lo-Fi. Thanks for watching.